Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Lunsford here. While I'm homesick, I thought I would prepare for you a tutorial on your assignment that you're going to be doing today, which is you're going to be drawing an egg and applying values to it. So please keep in mind everything you've already done on your value scales, and you're essentially just going to be making a value scale but in an egg shape, really. Okay. Um, your next slide, this slide just kind of shows you what supplies you're going to need. Please make sure that you grab an HB pencil for your lighter values and grab a 2B. You'll only need the 2B pencil when you're really attempting to get a little bit of a darker value, and grab a bit of a kneadable eraser. That'll be helpful. All right, start by drawing your egg, and when you're drawing it, what I like to do is I draw a lot of sketchy lines, and I also want you to draw this egg just a little bit larger than life-sized. Don't draw it huge, you don't want an ostrich egg, but just a little bit bigger than life-size would be great. Draw a lot of sketchy lines. Make sure you get it right, because I don't want you guys moving on and trying to shade in an egg that's not even the correct shape. All right, once you feel like you have an egg shape that's going to work for you, what I want you to do is take a bit of that kneadable eraser, and I want you to erase any lines that you don't feel are correct. This is my process. This is what I do. I will tell you now, if you stick to the first line that you draw, it's going to be wrong. So get rid of the lines that aren't working, leave the ones that are, and you'll be happy. Okay, your next slide here is going to be just that egg drawing, and before you start applying any values to your egg, make sure that it's drawn correctly, because there's no point in moving on if it doesn't even look like an egg. So at this point, my egg drawing is how I want it, and my line around my egg is very, very light, because eventually that line needs to disappear, because we don't want any outlines left in our drawing. Okay, this slide is just showing you how I begin, and to be honest with you, I'm using the spiral method of shading. I'm holding my pencil at the very end, and I'm laying down my values. I'm starting with where I'm seeing my darkest values, and I am very gently and very slowly starting where I feel like my darkest shadows are on the egg itself. I'm continuing using the same technique, the spiral method, still holding my pencil at the very end, using a very light touch, and I'm starting to kind of fill in where I'm seeing the darkest part of the egg, where the light is not hitting it, where it's falling in shadow. And again, I'm just working on the egg itself, and very slowly. You don't want to get it dark right away. Continuing that process of just kind of building up that lower half of the egg. Once I have that done, I'm going to start with a little bit of light value on the top of the egg where I see that. This is just an example of how I'm holding my pencil, very light touch. This is not going to be a quick process if you want it to be done well. Okay, I am continuing here, and I'm just continuing building up those darker values on the bottom half of my egg. All right, this is where I'm at so far. My outline is starting to sort of disappear, but I want you guys to also notice that I'm really, I know that you aren't noticing this, but it's just my process here is I'm really studying the egg. I'm looking at it at least 90% of the time. That's why it's going to be important that you guys have your egg placed on the paper in your line of vision. So you don't have to turn your head. You don't have to look for the egg. The egg is right there. All you have to do is glance your eyes up and down. So there should be, you should really be studying that egg really more than you're looking at your drawing at this point. Okay, just continuing those dark values, and I'm getting there. I'm not nearly as dark as I'm going to need to get, and this is a tricky thing, because not only do you want to get that dark area of the egg built up as much as you're going to need, but you also have the trick of still making this egg look like it's a white egg. All right. At this point, I have built up a lot of the values in the bottom half of my egg. What I'm doing now is I'm taking my kneadable eraser, and I'm almost doing a reverse drawing. I'm taking my eraser and I'm pulling out the highlights. And depending on where you're sitting in the room, it will depend on where your highlights are, and that's going to change if you move. I'd also recommend when you get set up for this project, I would, before you begin anything, I would have you guys find a good place in the room where you can sit and where you're pretty happy with the shadows that are on your egg. So if you're sitting down and there really are no shadows on your egg, move around until you can find a spot that you're satisfied with. So it might be near a window, but just walk around until you find a spot that's going to be good. All right, this is where I'm at right now. I'm still not nearly done building up my values, but I wanted you just to kind of see it right here before I go any further. Still continuing to build up the dark values, and you're also noticing that the top of my egg, although there is value on it, I do have some highlights, and not all highlights are going to be just a dot. They might be a line, you might have two highlights, and the bottom of my egg, you're starting to really see my reflected light. Okay, just more of that. All right, now what I'm going to do once I've started to I'm feeling pretty good about what's going on the egg itself, it's time to add some cast shadows. And those are going to be the shadows that are coming from your object, and in this case, your egg. So the darkest part of this shadow is going to be right underneath the reflected light. So kind of take note of that. And as you start adding in that cast shadow, you're going to start to see that edge start to really pop out. And you're going to really start to see that bottom edge of the egg. Again, no outlines. You want that edge to be created by the lightness of the egg next to the darkness of that shadow. Okay, just continuing to build up that shadow on the egg. And again, shadows, they're not just black. They have every value in the value scale just like everything else does. So don't make the mistake by just, going right for the shadow and making it as dark as you can. Continuing to build that up, and now you're going to see that I'm going to sort of start to expand around my egg to sort of start to build up a little bit of the paper and the light on the paper. I'm also starting to kind of sharpen up the left tip of the egg, so I'm taking the tip of a sharpened pencil, I'm making an edge, and then I'm filling the value from there. It's really kind of sharpen up the end of that egg. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the back of that egg, where I'm kind of back filling the egg and kind of creating a really crisp end to both of my eggs without relying on an outline. In this slide, I am just kind of continuing with the background, and you'll kind of notice on either end of the egg, the background is very, very light, but as you look kind of directly on top and below the egg on the paper, there is a little bit of a contrast, and the paper appears a little bit gray compared to the top of the egg. So that's why I'm kind of filling that gray kind of back behind the egg, and that's again going to really help to kind of pop out that top edge and create an edge again without relying on an outline. Okay, I'm just kind of continuing to fill in, building up my shadow more, putting finishing touches on my egg, really making sure that the edge of my egg is really crisp and clean, and that my values on the inside of the egg are nice and softly blended. Okay, kind of getting there, and just putting some final touches on here, making sure I have every value on the value scale, making sure that there is no outline, making sure my technique is strong. This took me about an hour, so this is your final product. So I want you guys to take your time. You're not going to get very far in your first day. It's really important to start with the correct drawing. Make sure your egg is in your line of sight. Make sure you're studying it. Make sure that you're kind of happy with what your shadows are looking like before you kind of start. And it's going to be gradual. And all I can tell you guys is practice and study the thing that you're drawing. And good luck. And I'll see you soon.